And welcome back to another great episode of Meeting of the Minds. Today I'm here with baseball coach, former Major League pitcher, Jeff Bronkey. Jeff, thank you for being with us on the show.
Yes, great to be here, Gene. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. I just wanted to get your expertise on your mindset when you were competing, now you're coaching, just coaching philosophies, mindset, anything you want to share with us. I'm sure we could learn a ton.
Yeah. I mean, I've been doing basically private lessons in the baseball field, pitching lessons and coaching showcase teams for about the last 22 years, after playing. So, yeah, we talk about this all the time. Talking about a complete athlete or a complete baseball player, pitcher in my field. And, we have three components. So we've got the physical, we've got the physical, we got the technique, which is the mechanics, and then obviously we got the mindset. So, and I know me and you have talked about this numerous times to where what I've seen, the number one thing that's neglected is the mental part of this game. And in my opinion, the mental part of this game by far is way more important than obviously the technique or maximizing your body.
Yeah. So, a pitcher especially, that's tremendously mental.
Yes, and if it's the same thing where, let's just say you have the best physical tools out there, if your mind's not right, if you're not focused, or you're competing, you're afraid to fail, or you're timid, etc., you know how it works. It's not going to work. So I think it's great, all the stuff you do. I've seen a lot of this stuff. I love it. Can never get enough of it.
Thank you. Yeah. So what was your mindset growing up that brought you into eventually the major leagues? Now I saw you're a record holder, first Afghani-born baseball player in the majors.
Yeah, that was kind of the first. I didn't have a great career, personally, but yeah, that's the first question they always ask me. So it was kind of a long story on that, but yeah. So as far as my mindset, I mean, I think really looking back on it, it's been many years ago, but I was pretty confident athlete, growing up and had a lot of success. I think, for me, I guess I spent 7 years in the minors and, got almost 3 in the majors. But the big thing for me was when I started failing, and started really getting hit hard, night after night, then I became, I distrusted my tool set. I started pressing, trying too hard, all that thing. So I think for me, I was extremely confident, probably thought I was better than I was, frankly. And then I got humbled up. And then I had an adjustment. I wasn't trusting my stuff, my tool set. So as far as what we want, is obviously, I like the thing that your thing that you do on the predator versus the prey is so perfect. It's perfect, right? So when we compete again, these guys, and that's the hardest thing, for me, spending time with these guys. We don't have enough time really with them, but it's always the mechanics, and then the mindset kind of gets a little bit neglected. But the predator and the prey, so we go out, and I always look at it like it's a street fight. And I know what you did, and I know you were really good at it. And so I try to teach the kids, if it's just like a street fight with a mean guy in the alley that's not going to quit. So if you go out there timid, you're going to get rocked. You're going to be in severe trouble, especially in your sport, in MMA, and then, so, you come out aggressive, and if you start hitting him, and then you let him recover though, and you step back, you're going to give him a chance. So it's the same Michael Jordan, get on the throat, come out aggressive, focused, and get on him, and then don't give him a chance to come back. Just step on his throat and take him out.
Absolutely. Now, how about coming up from youth and then because it takes a lot of confidence, relaxing under pressure, focus. You had to be doing some things right, just even to make it to the pros, because how few players actually make it to that level. So what were some of the skills along the way? How did you relax under pressure? What did you used to tell yourself? Anything like that?
Yeah, I was real fortunate to have really good coaches, growing up. And I'll never forget my basketball coach where you couldn't do anything right. You know, of course, I'm young and not very smart. I'm not that smart now, but a little bit smarter. You know, back in the day, I used to think this guy, you know, I couldn't do anything right. I couldn't please this guy. And what I didn't understand, I figured it out, was about 30, was, you know, as far as him pushing us and demanding so much out of us to where, you know, we literally had, you know, young men crying, and, you know how that goes, throwing up in the bucket every day. And, you know, looking back on it, though, I would honestly say that was probably the number one key to me making it to the big leagues was my basketball coach. Now, at Oklahoma State, also, to give credit to those guys really, really helped us. We had a championship program, and everybody had the high standard again. So we were always trying to, you know, live up to that standard in a good way. So it's the same thing. We're just taking the other guy's place that they taught us how to compete, and you know, the physical tools and the mental tools, you know, to reach a high level. So I was fortunate to have, you know, good people that helped me along the ride.
Absolutely. Now, how do you pass that on to your players now as a coach?
Well, you know, I think if you kind of separate this, you've got a way longer list, you know, than I do. I mean, obviously you're a pro at this. I try to work on the mental side of this, you know, as much as I can. You know, obviously it's work ethic first and foremost. That's where it starts. Really, I took some notes here. I got a little cheat sheet, but
Gotcha, yeah.
You know, I put down, you know, if we're starting with the practice situation,
Yeah.
you know, obviously work hard, develop that discipline and that work ethic. You know, nobody's going to give you anything in this world. You got to work for it. You know, work hard. Obviously, you know, have a positive mindset. And I saw the other stuff on you. I mean, it starts with attitude. And I think that word that you used, you know, gratitude, is probably the most important word. You know, we're real fortunate. So it's a privilege, you know, to play the sports and just to live, frankly. So, you know, it's going to start with that positive attitude, that mindset. I took notes. There's 3 guys when we're talking about work ethic that came to mind. And again, my career wasn't anything to boast about or anything like that. But one thing I'm really, really proud of is I got to play with Nolan Ryan. And he was the best of the best as far as the power pitchers. And, you know, he just watching him, I try not to suffocate him, but I'd always go out early and watch his whole pregame routine. I watch him in the weight room. And this guy, you know, we always stress to the boys that all the great ones are different. Obviously, no matter what field you're in, you know, so, you know, make sure you set your own standard. Don't be a follower. So Nolan was this much different than the best in the world. I mean, he truly was. So everything he did, he practiced with a purpose. Nobody could outwork Nolan. Obviously, that gave him the competitive edge. The other one is, I know you know him well. I went to school with John Smith.
All right.
So I had John for some classes. I still see John once in a while. I saw him a couple of years ago at a wedding. Actually, with I believe it was his sister's wedding. And anyway, my wife was real good friends with his sister growing up. So, but anyway, I always go back to John. And no matter what he did the night before, or what, I mean, this guy was so disciplined. And I know you know the story, but he'd wake up in the middle of the night and he would train. And I'm like, right? And I know he carried this into his pro career, and it was always about the Russians are sleeping at this time. So obviously he's just trying to get that competitive edge, you know, on his competition. And then the last one is, you know, Michael Jordan. They watching that Last Dance, they're talking about everybody's a little bit different because, you know, nervous can be good, right? I mean, good nervous, and then there's bad nervous. But Michael Jordan, you know, they asked him, hey, did you ever get nervous? And Michael's like, why would I ever get nervous? I outworked every single person. I know that in the world. So when we stepped on the court, I was better prepared. So why am I worried now? Now I just trust my tool set and go. So as far as, you know, it starts with obviously you've got to have a great work ethic. So I think last thing on that, I'm getting long-winded. a lot of the kids, honestly, without being negative, I don't really even know if they know what the definition of hard work is. That's where it starts. So I kind of touched on that. It's don't compare yourself to others, because if you're doing that, you're probably in bad trouble. So, get your role models, compare yourself to the guys that are, read Michael's book and John Smith and Nolan Ryan, emulate that. So I think that's a big thing, though. For me, it's okay. We're working hard. Yeah, I'm working really hard. And then when we get to the bottom of it, and we give them a plan, obviously, what to do. But yeah, it's not really hard, in my opinion. So set your own mark. Don't be a follower. Be a leader.
Excellent. And I like what you said about having a routine before Nolan Ryan would go out there. And I'm sure all pitchers, you had a routine. Nolan Ryan had a routine. The other pitchers, the batters, they had a routine. Why is that so important to have that routine?
Yeah, I mean, you've got basically a pre-pitch routine, in the baseball field, and you've got a pre-game routine. Yeah, I think routine is probably the most important word we have. All this. When we get in a good, solid routine, everybody's routine could be a little bit different, but we got to find the one that works for you. But when you get in that routine, then you're always comfortable. You're always relaxed. Everything is familiar. So even for me, I mean, just pitching, I never had a routine. And what would happen to me? I'd always start pretty relaxed. I don't remember ever being real uptight when I was primarily a reliever. But when I come in the game, I don't remember, okay, I'm really nervous. I was usually good at that point. Then all of a sudden something would happen. Boom, base hit past my head, double off the wall or whatever. And that's what it would start for me. I'd start squeezing the ball. I wouldn't breathe. I'd start rushing. And then I'd start trying too hard. So for me, that really, really helped to get a solid routine, take deep breaths. And then at that point, hopefully the goal is really just to stay the same, instead of when you're facing, those hard times, the adversity and the tough times, you just, you still can compete at that point where you don't either lose your mind or physically just, blow up.
Yeah. Oh, that makes a lot of sense. And I like what you said there about the taking deep breaths. And we tell athletes that all the time in all sports. A lot of times they hold their breath and they don't even realize it, and how important it is, especially in a sport like baseball, where it's, there's a pitch and then there's a break and then there's another pitch and then there's a break. Being able to take that cleansing breath, to recenter yourself, to reset yourself. And that wouldn't just go for the pitcher, but the batter, the fielders, the catcher, everyone. So.
Yeah, and I spent a lot of time in the minor leagues, so there's things that I saw instantly. I probably wouldn't have got it if I'd have been up there a little bit earlier, younger. But yeah, those guys up there at that highest level, they've got that solid routine. They practice better. They're practicing with a purpose. They're not just wasting time. They understand their strengths and their weaknesses. And the other thing we try to instill in the kids is focus on the process. Don't be so concerned about the results, in practice. So work on your technique. Don't worry about, exactly where the ball goes. Focus on the process, because we know if the mechanics are solid, obviously you're going to throw the ball where you want to. Your release point's going to be better, more consistently. But yeah, everybody tends to focus, me included, on the results more than the process, in practice. And the other thing I would say is work on your weaknesses. I was bad about this, but I wanted self-gratification, instant gratification, and work on your weaknesses, and then your weaknesses won't be your weaknesses in the game. So we tend to think by human nature to work on what we're good at, and we got deficiencies or things that we need to work on, and I didn't really want to work on those because they didn't make me feel good, but again, instantly, I think really, from the minors to the majors, just the focus, and then obviously this, the mind. I mean, these guys would stay even, and they wouldn't go so high and so low. And then, I played with a lot of guys in the minor leagues that were clearly better. I'm not saying by a mile, but clearly better physically, but their mind was just a mess. And, again, I think it was normally when things went bad, or a seasoned veteran just stays calm. He stays the same. He doesn't change. And he still competes at that point where the other guy just blows up again. So it's just really, so again, I commend you for what you're doing. Everybody needs to basically have a mental coach, in my opinion. I can, it doesn't matter how good you are physically. If you're not good here in the mind, and it, Gene, you basically have zero chance, to be at the best you can. It's impossible. So.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's what we say, that an athlete who knows how to maximize their potential is eventually going to beat the one with more talent. Now, one of the things that we always spoke about that was interesting to me, you said that you and your brother, because I have two younger brothers, we competed at a high level in wrestling, but having a brother who competed at a high level in golf. And I spoke to Tam before, and he said many times you guys would talk about mindset and about the mental side of sports. And even though it's different sports, there's still that mindset. So how did you help each other along the way in your path to both being very good in your respective sports?
Yeah, and just that frankly, I'm not going to speak for my brother, but that was our weakness. That was totally our weakness. Everybody's a little bit different with what happens when they face that adversity. So that's one thing that I'm definitely for me, it was I ran into a good pitching coach in AAA, and he said, "Bronkey, put the ball down." And he'd had it, and I don't know what's going on. I'm just throwing, working on nothing, just chucking it like usual. And he's like, "Put the ball down." He's like, "Why do you try to throw 104? Can you do that?" And I'm thinking, all right, what's he saying? No, sir. Why do you try to make your breaking ball break 6 feet? Can you do that? No, sir. Hey, play catch. Quit forcing things. Why you try to be so nasty? That's your whole problem. So for me, I basically just gave up and said, I'm not going to try anymore in a good way. I'm just going to go play a game of catch in the backyard. And I'm going to trust my tool set. So, and again, I wasn't ever great at that concept, but that got me, 3 years to big league. My brother, same thing, on the golf course. And again, I'm not going to speak for him, but yeah, very, very talented. And we really didn't have anything mental as far as anybody that would ever really talk to us, growing up, about this, about controlling your emotions and your mind. And we could have, I know he would say that again. I'm not speaking for him, but been much better. I mean, not night and day better if we would have spent time. You say it best. So what I see, even looking around our facility, it's a great facility. We're going almost I'm going to take our facility out because we all try to do, work as much as we can with the mind. Most of these facilities and these teachers are spending, 98% of the time or whatever it is, the majority, on the physical again. And it's a tough deal. And you can tell. Now, do you do some lessons? Do you work with the guys on the mat still?
From time to time. It's mostly mindset, but sometimes I'll get on the mat with them.
So you can tell, especially if you go to their match, so that's a question for you. I'd love to hear it. If you got a guy that's really struggling here, but he's really good, what is your strategy?
Well, first we have to see why, right? So find out when it is that they're getting nervous or overthinking. And then the next step is finding what exactly are they telling themselves in those moments. So they have to do a little bit of soul searching. One of the first exercises we give our athletes is to think of your 3 best performances, and then on a separate sheet of paper, your 3 worst performances. And then you write down what exactly were you thinking, what you were feeling, what your energy level was like on a scale of 1 to 10 in your best performances, and then your worst performances. And when you hold them side by side, you usually see it's 2 totally different athletes. Now, I could tell them that, but it's another thing for them to write it down in their own handwriting and see it for themselves.
Yeah, that's great stuff. And then the other thing, that I think was the biggest thing is the failure. Failure is a great thing. It's a necessary thing. It's how we learn. It's how we get better. And obviously nobody likes to fail or lose, especially the great ones. But we have to learn to deal with it because it's going to happen. And that's where I was really bad too. And again, I'm not going to speak for my brother, but yeah, that was the struggle, was dealing with the failure. And then, again, we didn't have very good counsel, but it's almost like a denial situation. We got issues, all right, we'll go get them tomorrow. Well, it's not going to be any better if things get rough again, or we have to face that adversity unless we can control our mind. It's just like banging your head against the wall. For me, it was. I just do the same thing. I just keep blowing up, over and over and over. When I failed, some guys, everybody's kind of different. A lot of the students I have, they'll start timid. They'll go out there timid and kind of feeling their way through things. And as they maybe get a couple outs, they'll gain that confidence, and then they'll start bringing the stuff, we'll call it attack mode. And then, other guys are starting in attack mode, but then when, it starts getting bad, they tend to blow up. So it's a process, right? So, just little by little, we want those guys just basically unbreakable, right? I mean, so nothing can really, affect them, no matter if it's crowd screaming or, maybe a coach screaming, whatever it is, their focus is strong enough and good enough to stay in the moment, not get ahead of themselves. We all tend to kind of focus on things we can't control. So obviously that's the biggest thing we have. Focus on the things you can control. That would be another one for me. I mean, I was horrible about that. Okay, I'm an A-ball. When am I getting out of here? I got to get out of here now. Now we start pressing. It's he got called up. I didn't. All these things. Made an error at third base. It's all the stuff that we have zero control over. And, it ends up stressing you out, worry, which leads to lack of performance. So it's an easy concept, but it's very, very difficult, as to do.
Right. And I think you nailed it there when you said, how do we work with our athletes? Usually what's holding them back is focusing too much on factors outside of their control. And particularly, they don't want to look bad. They don't want to lose, make mistakes, feel embarrassed, or we're focusing too much on the outcome. 9 out of 10 athletes in any sport that we speak about, that's usually what it is. They're focusing too much on the stats or the wins or losses or what other people are thinking about them. So once we could find out when exactly they're doing that, then we could shift their focus onto something in their control. And that's really what the predator mindset is about. The predator mindset does not mean you're mad. Predator mindset means you're focusing on your effort, your attitude, your aggressiveness. Prey mindset is you're focusing on all that other garbage that's outside of your control.
Yeah, so, that's exactly it. That's exactly right.
Easier said than done, right?
Yeah. That's again, the concept is absolutely as simple as it comes, but hardly anybody can really get to it unless, again, like you're doing with the guys, you're spending time on it. If you don't really spend time on it, like you say, I mean, how are you really going to improve on it? So, and it's hard at the young levels, too, not to get on the coaches, but yeah, it's just kind of difficult when they're not really getting any of that, through their coaching. So again, I was fortunate to have some really good coaches, more, I guess, on the physical than the mental. But yeah, so hopefully these guys, have some good mentors and the teams they play on, hopefully their coaches spend some time, in that area. But, depending on how mature the guy is too, some of these young guys, I think more than girls, kind of, just because we have 2 daughters here, but I coached the softball there for a while. I always stayed in the baseball with the private lessons, and then it turned into, of course, showcase baseball. But yeah, the guys seem to struggle, in my opinion, with the emotions. It's different. So I think, just kind of the maturing, process. So I got a lot of those young boys that I deal with. Yeah, I mean, one thing goes bad, and they're in jeopardy of their whole game being over. But like you said, that's why it's pitch by pitch. Can't change the past. Focus on the pitch. Execute. You're done. Double off the wall. Hopefully you're the same. Run on second, no problem. Pitch it. Focus on the next pitch. So that's what we, try the best we can to instill that. And it gets tough too. Not trying to dog some coaches, but when people are screaming at them, hey, why'd you do this? Why'd you do that? You throw strikes, or whatever. Then all of a sudden, the self-doubt and all that stuff might creep in, or if they're screaming at you after making a physical mistake, we want our guys to say, hey, hit it to me again, no problem. But if they're getting, lambasted verbally for a physical, I think you said it best. I mean, physical mistakes, they're going to happen. I mean, what are you going to do? But now if you're loafing and you're not working, then it's time to stop, right? I mean, you can control that. So yeah, you work hard, you have a good attitude, positive mindset. And, in my case, we don't worry about physical mistakes one bit. It's just focus and effort, and that's it. So, obviously we want our athletes to be free in competition with absolutely no regards to worrying about failure, aggressive with, not playing scared or to fail.
That's so important. I think at the lower levels, and it's not just the lower levels, it goes up to even some of the top athletes in the world. It really does. But especially as a young kid, whether it's middle school, high school, early college, there's so much focused on they don't want to make any mistakes, and just understanding that that's part of the game. It's going to happen. Right. So it's something, what it is. We spend so much time focusing on the body, on the technique, on the strength, on the conditioning. We have to spend a good amount of time on the mindset, like we said before. And we've been trained to think a certain way by society, that it's all about the outcome. It's all about the statistics. It's all about the storyline. And we have to actually untrain that. We have to unlearn that behavior. We have to unlearn that mindset, which is why it's so important. And it takes time, just like your technique, your skills, your drills, just like your strength. It takes time to work on that mindset.
Yeah, just to echo what you're saying too. Yeah, they as far as the, we try to help the parents also. It's just, when they fail, it's okay. It's a good thing, right? So I think by nature we tend to protect that. Okay. Oh gosh, Johnny had a bad game. He's in trouble. He's going to be, his feelings are going to be hurt. He's going to be okay. He's going to be okay. I mean, I don't remember anybody really having to tell me, hey, you're going to be okay. I beat myself up enough about it, but it was okay. It was okay. It wasn't, as long as everybody understands, it's a good thing. So there's no need to protect, the kids or the athletes, from failing. They need to understand it's actually, a good thing. I mean, it really is, so again, how do you deal with the failure and the adversity? The mental toughness is going to be, again, I know I'm repeating, but yeah, first and foremost, the most important thing, by far. So yeah. Gene, hey, question. You got a story? I know you got a really good story for me.
On what?
Well, I mean, a wrestling story, a story of a turnaround kid, a turnaround from a timid kid to a state champion. I know you got stories.
We've seen that kind of stuff all the time. I'll give you a really good one. We had a wrestler athlete. He was a sophomore in high school. He placed in the state for the first time. This is before we started working with him, so we can't take credit for this. Placed in the state as a sophomore. Now all of a sudden he's a junior, and his dad calls us up in September, the beginning of the school year, and said his son's not enjoying the sport anymore. Well, I know what's going on there from seeing all these athletes. Now he's ranked in the state. He finally has pressure on him. He never had pressure before. He placed in the state. Now he's ranked in the state, so he's not enjoying the sport. So the state tournament is in March. So I said, well, why don't you start doing our mindset program? Each week we could work with your son. We told him we'll work with his son on his mindset. We'll take him through our different lessons, our mindset exercises. That's what he needs, right? He's got to work on his mind just like he works on his technique. And so we started taking him in the beginning of September. Then March rolls around. So that's about 6 months, 5-6 months. We're working with him every single week. And fast forward, he's in the state semifinals in Atlantic City at Boardwalk Hall. This is where Mike Tyson fought Michael Spinks. This is where they had Miss America. So it's a big venue and, thousands of people watching. And he's in the state semifinals. And my brother, Jeff, and myself, we're sitting in the crowd, and he's in the corner with his coach, laughing, smiling, joking around. And I remember nudging my brother saying, man, I don't care if of course I want to see him win, but look, he wasn't enjoying the sport back in September. And now here we are in the biggest match of this young man's life. And he's smiling and he's laughing with his coaches. That's a success. No matter how he does, he's enjoying the sport. And not only did he go on to win that match, but he pulled off the biggest upset in the state finals and won the whole thing. So he became a state champion as a junior. But like I said, even outside of the success, the fact that now he was enjoying the sport, the weight was off his back, and now he was able to compete at his potential. And of course, it's because he's a hard worker. He did his strength training. He did his conditioning. He did his technique, his skills and drills. But he also took the time and consistently worked on his mindset.
That's great stuff. Yeah. And that was another one that I just totally forgot. I mean, first and foremost, have fun when you compete, right? I mean, have a great time. All right. Bases loaded, nobody out. But hey, enjoy it. Enjoy the thing, and that's a great point. It's like we forget sometimes, why do we play? Well, the number one reason is to have fun. And then like you said, it's the outside stuff, it starts getting pressure and that's probably another whole talk. That pressure comes from ourselves technically, right? So it's like, I've been there too. I mean, in the minor leagues for many years, it was not fun. But again, I'm gonna go again and echo. I was always focused on the stuff that I had absolutely no control. And even when I had success, it really wasn't fun. It was like, whew, got through it. All right, I got through that one. Okay, tomorrow's coming again. I got to be, strike out 7 in 1 inning, which is impossible. And really, that just never would stop for me. So I forgot why I was even playing the game. It was all about the fun, So again, hopefully they got good people to surround them, though, because a lot of coaches, again, not trying to get on the coaches, but they'll make it a stressful situation. And the kid's 9 years old. He's just out there playing some baseball. So it's kind of, prepare, work hard, get your mind right, focus on, prepare the best you possibly can, then let it rip, right? Just let it rip. We're all going to screw up. No human's perfect. It's okay. It's a good thing we screwed up. It's all right. We hung a pitch today or whatever, swung at a bad pitch. No big deal. You can always work on your skills, So again, that mind's got to be free, aggressive, relaxed. And you look at the most successful people. I love it. The interviews. Well, hey, what was tonight? What'd you do? What'd you focus on? Hey, I had a great time. Boy, that was fun. I never had so much fun. That's how they think. So again, it's all about trying to, tutor and get that same identical mindset. It's like life's too short, to stress out about. I guess in our, my case with the baseball, a piece of leather and whatever, a tree, basically a piece of wood, or a piece of metal, it's just a game. So, enjoy it and, play hard. That's kind of our motto too, play hard, have fun, play hard, but first and foremost, have fun.
That's right.
But if you don't work very hard, you're probably not going to have much fun, right?
Right. It all works together. If you're working hard, you're having fun, you're usually performing well. But how many times, and we see this for all sports, athletes just trying to get it over with. Let's just get this over with. Well, good luck competing against an athlete who really wants to be there, who's living for the moment. That's going to be tough to beat that person.
Yeah, it's going to be impossible. Yeah. So great stuff. I know. I don't know. Again, I mean, that's pretty much my whole spiel. The number one thing, again, that I see in 22 years with thousands of athletes is, the mindset is not right. And, for everything from practice, focusing on the results to how their mindset is, when they compete. So that's the hardest thing. But that's why I was asking you about a story. When I see one of those guys, I'm just like, so we just try to keep it loose and, really what I try to do too is get him out of his comfort zone.
Right.
I said, look, bud, hey, I love you. All right. I want the best for you. We have the same common goal, and when he knows, you love him and you want the best for him, then let's mess with him a little bit. Let's get him out of his comfort zone and make it really, really tough. And then again, like we were talking about earlier, hopefully we get him out of there so often out of his comfort zone and face out adversity. When he faces it, he'll be fine. You know, instead of making everything perfect for the kid, and then when he faces those tough times, he blows up mentally or breaks down mentally.
Those are big points. The creating adversity situations in practice. And the other thing I really liked that you said was about watching the interviews. My dad was very big with me and my brothers watching the interviews after the World Series, the Super Bowl, the Olympics. He would say, listen, you could learn a lot of what these athletes are saying, and you nailed it. I always use that as an example, that after these top competitions in any sport, they're saying they were having fun. I was just being me. It was just another day in the office. Very different than what we think an athlete's going to tell themselves. This is it, now or never, make it or break it, do or die. They're not usually saying that. That's Hollywood. That's movies.
Yeah, and a great point again. Now, if we conversely, we take the opposite. So, when was I in trouble? Well, I was trying too hard. I was focused on things I couldn't control. I was trying to be somebody else. I wasn't trusting my tool set. I wasn't trusting what I've done. So, again, you practice hard. The work's been done. Now you trust yourself. But, yeah, all the great ones are saying they just went out and had a great time. And then, the ones that are struggling, hey, what's the slump all about? Pressing, rushing, trying too hard, trying to be too good.
Yeah, absolutely. Changing gears on you for a second, who are some of the best batters you ever faced in your career?
Again, not that my career was something to brag about by any means.
There had to be some you did well. There had to be some good hitters that you were able to get out. There had to be some.
Yeah, I think I faced probably 20 to 30 Hall of Famers. I was fortunate. I guess the one hardest ball I ever gave up, hardest ball that's been hit when I pitched. We were in the old Kingdome in Seattle. Griffey Jr. And actually, it was my brother. My brother lives in Oregon, so he came up and he goes, "Yeah, first pitch." It was the first pitch I threw to Griffey, and it was about 312 down the line. That was a high wall. I threw it in there, boom, right down the pie hole. All of a sudden, bam. And by the time I turned literally to look to see where it went, it was on the line. It hit the seats. So he hit it about 315. If he'd have got up on it, it'd been about 550. But, yeah, that was the first pitch. That was the hardest hit ball. I think the guy and I don't even know why, the guy I had a lot of success against was Frank Thomas. I do believe we probably have to dig up the stats. I don't know if he ever got a hit. He might have been 0 for 9, maybe 1 for 9. I think I struck him out maybe 5-6 times. I wasn't even a strikeout pitcher. I think I kind of came out of 3/4, and Frank would dive in there, and he hated the ball inside. So I had pretty good success with Thomas, but faced a lot of great hitters. A lot got me, also.
Oh yeah, that's exciting because. So those are always good questions, always interesting going up against those people and being teammates with Nolan Ryan. Like you said, that he was just different than other people. What were some of the other things that he did?
I'm going to go back to gratitude. I'm going to go back to that. Nolan was, if you could do it perfect, and I don't want to get into a big spill here, but I believe that what kind of gives those athletes, the most successful athletes, on the court or the mat or the baseball field, they don't care what others think. They're extremely confident. They're some almost narcissistic, but what that allows them to do on the field is not care. Right? They're 100% loose, not worried about what anybody else thinks or says. So I'm going to go back to Nolan. He was the most humble guy I ever played with. Thank you so much for, taking my bag to the clubhouse guy, or whatever. The most humble guy, quiet confidence is how I would define Nolan. You felt it, his presence. He didn't have to talk about it. He did it with his arm and, and with his body, but on the field. So he's, the most humble guy off the field, nicest, down to earth farmer guy, small town guy. On the field, he was definitely, beyond ferocious. So so if we could groom it perfect, be a quality, humble human being off the court. But when we cross those lines, You've got to turn into that character. You've got to get in attack mode. So Nolan was the best extreme I saw at both ends of those, you know. So, and again, I played with him when he was 46 years old. He still would spend about 2 hours, 2.5 hours, you know, in the weight room. So, but everything he did just was real methodical at that time. He was older, you know, but everything, again, he didn't waste time. I mean, everything he did, you know, he had a purpose for it. He was trying to get better every day. And I think that's really what it's all about. You know, we just try to instill that. If you can just get a little bit better, you know, every day, then we're heading in the right direction, you know. So, but as far as that, yeah, I mean, I saw an absolute difference with Nolan. I don't know if you're a reader, but I've got a couple of his books. They've got it's called Ryan's Routine, not to ruin it, but I've got it up there actually on the bookshelf. But they go through it. I won't even get into it, but it's his 5-day routine. And I'll show some of my boys that, and their mouths just fall out to the ground. What? I'm like, yeah. So what's the definition of hard work? Only thing I want to say, I think he lifted about 25,000 pounds of weights on the day that he pitched. Now, 50 pounds times 10 is 500, so it's not as much as we think. But I mean, he was doing that workout, and then he'd go throw 160 pitches at age, 46.
Right. So
just special, right? One in a billion, just way different than everybody else, basically.
Absolutely. Speaking of unique situations, Oklahoma State. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because obviously Oklahoma State in all sports are just, powerhouse, proud tradition.
Yeah. I grew up in Oregon. Long story short, there was a guy that I played high school ball with. Really weird. Went to Oklahoma State, 3rd-round draft out of high school. He said great things. I saw him on ESPN, their College World Series. So I went there to obviously play baseball. Went to World Series every year there. Here's one thing. I never watched wrestling. Growing up in Oregon, I know they have some good wrestling at University of Oregon, Oregon State, Southern Oregon State College. I've heard there's good wrestling there. I fell in love with the wrestling back there. It was the old Gallagher Iba Arena. And shoot, they packed that thing up. I remember watching Iowa come in, Penn State. Now you talk about mean, and I know Gene. I know you on the mat were mean. I mean, Mike Sheets, Kenny Monday, John Smith. I love that stuff. I went to all their matches. There was an old gotta love this. There's an old saying. I remember when I showed up, and whatever, young, testosterone, and they're like, "Hey, don't mess with the wrestlers here." And I'm like, okay, what's that all about? Hey, I'm telling you right now, don't do it. Don't mess with the wrestlers. But I became really good friends. I mean, John's still a good friend. Became pretty good friends with the wrestlers. But yeah, they were a different breed. I mean, they're unbelievable. Golf also, a lot of golfers coming out of there, and then the baseball tradition. Couple basketball guys, and obviously football guys. Barry Sanders. But yeah, I enjoyed my days there. And basically for me, that kind of just got me out of the childhood and, turned me into man. But yeah, surrounded by just great, great athletes everywhere. So the only thing, the only thing, we didn't win that national championship. That would be, but many great memories. We just seemed to never really click when we got to Omaha. We just never got it done. That would be probably the only, for me, the only negative. We didn't win a national championship. And I really thought at least two out of the 3 years I was there, we were good enough to do it. We just didn't get it done. A couple pitches here and there, a couple plays. So, you got to have your A+ game, to win the national championship.
Yeah. No, it's a lot of great stuff. Great stories and everything. Thank you so much for sharing. There were so many gold nuggets of information there. I mean, the watching the interviews, the mistakes being part of the process, the enjoying the sport, the routines, all of it. Just a lot of great information. Anyone who watches this, they're going to get a lot from it. Thank you very much, Jeff. I appreciate it.
Well, Gene, hey, thank you so much for having me, and I respect everything you do. I watch a lot of your stuff, so hopefully I can get some guys to you and some of our field teams with you, okay? But I appreciate what you do.
Absolutely. Any way we could help. All right. Take care, Jeff. Thank you again.
Thank you, Gene. Thank you for having me.
All right. Take care.
You too, Gene.